if you were to pick 5 guys, okay, to start on your all NBA team of all time, from point guard, you get a point guard, you get a 2 guard, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. Who is your team of the greatest NBA team that you can form out of all the players that you have?
Okay, and this is guys like I love, so it's
Yes.
not necessarily like greatest of all times. I don't need statistical numbers and things to come at me or anything like that. But Magic Johnson, point guard. I grew up a diehard Laker fan. It's Magic.
I would agree with you, yes.
You don't get LeBron if you don't have Magic. Let's just be honest. In everything that goes with it. 2 guard, it's got to be MJ. Right? Like there's, I mean, I am, it's watching him, the way he plays, everything that goes with it. 3, I'm probably going to go a little bit undersized, but I've always loved him. I loved him when I was working with the Spurs. Manu Ginobili.
Really? Ooh, wow.
Manu.
Nice.
Wow.
The man just makes stuff happen. He just makes plays happen. Defensively, it's chaotic, but defensively he makes plays. He gets to the left so easily. Everybody knows he's going left. Nobody has ever been able to stop the man that entire career going that way. I am picking another Spur because I do think he's the greatest power forward of all time, Tim Duncan. I don't think that's debatable to me. I don't think we're there. And, and again, I'm slanted awfully just because I grew up on the West Coast. Shaq's my center.
And a lot of people would look at that, and a lot of people, Shaq was just on the, I forget what show, it was the TNT show, but it was another show after the TNT show. I forget what they call it, the NBA Today or whatever the heck they do. And I think Kenny Smith said that who if you were to go on your top 3 greatest Lakers of all time, where would you put yourself? Would you put yourself in the top 3? And he says, I put myself as number 1. Now, when you look at the dominance of what Shaquille O'Neal was for 6 years, I don't think there was any Laker as dominant as him for the 6 years he dominated the league. I don't think it was.
And I don't think people actually give him the proper credit, especially because towards the end of the career when he got big and heavy and a little bit slower, he was so agile for a 7-foot, 290-pound dude. Like he was able to just the spins, the a little bit more acrobatic than people really remember and things like that. Like he was doing stuff at 7 feet where you're like, damn, okay. That's pretty impressive. I didn't know you could move that way physically. And when you just go top Lakers, I mean, the center history with Lakers, you can go so deep in that sense. Just there is some of the best centers in the game ever to have played are Lakers. So, if it wasn't Shaq, I would have gone Kareem. Like, it's just that close.
I mean, some of these young guys, some of these guys that are around our age, they don't even know who Elgin Baylor is. I mean, Elgin Baylor was one of the greatest 3-4 guys that ever played in the game, defensively, offensively. But people don't know who he is because they weren't alive to see him play. And
not a lot of footage.
No, there is not a lot of footage. And my grandfather used to tell me when we would talk basketball, my grandfather in the 90s, and I was trying to say, well, Charles Barkley and all these guys say, come on. He every time I would name a small forward, he would name another small forward in the 70s and the 80s or the 60s that were dominant. And I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but and that's what's so special about when you see the pastime. Even with baseball, you go from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, all the way. And that's why when the decades go away, you really can't compare and contrast some of these players because the game completely changed. So that's what made the game so special.
I kind of went in on this.
I'm sorry?
I said I kind of went in on this.
Go ahead, speak up.
Well, no, I'm just saying. I think we should all give our top 5s, no? Or
go
our
ahead.
lineups,
what's your top 5? I know Kobe Bryant's in your top 5, so go ahead.
Well, it's not top 5. It's obviously, Manu wouldn't, no offense, Mo, but I don't think Manu's on many people's.
That's fine. It's a unique take.
I agree with
Who's your starting 5? Let's hear it.
I would probably go, there's going to be a common theme here. Isaiah Thomas would be my point guard. The original one, not the guy that...
We know who you're talking
about. MJ would be 2. Kobe would be 3. Or vice versa. I don't really care how they go. But Kobe would... Whatever. My power forward is going to be Kevin Garnett. Even though I know Duncan's better. But I'm going to go Garnett. And then I would probably go... Yeah, I would go Shaq.
Speedy, who's your top 5 of all
now,
time?
Question: are we allowing LeBron point guard eligibility?
Just play, yes, whatever. You can do whatever you want.
I'll do LeBron, Jordan. That's 2. Larry Bird 3. Duncan and Kareem.
I would put Magic Johnson as my starting point guard. I put Michael Jordan as my 2, absolutely the greatest basketball player ever. I would put LeBron James as my 3 because the dominance of what he could do and defend multiple positions. I would also think of putting Scottie Pippen there because he was a dominant defensive player too, and I would put him on anybody, and he'd probably stick him. Also, Kevin Durant, you could put Kevin Durant there too. But my power forward would be Tim Duncan. It's not even a question. I think he's the greatest power forward to ever play the game. And at my center position, I would probably put Bill Russell because he was the anchor and he was a defensive-minded player. And with all the offensive players that I have, I need an anchor. And I think he'd be my anchor with Tim Duncan. So,
Jeff, I just did pick Larry Bird, but okay.
Larry Bird is special, and I've seen some footage of Larry Bird that it just makes him look even more unbelievable when you watch him. I don't think a lot of people have seen how special Larry Bird really was, and even as a 3-4 guy, how he saw the field, and he was a general and a point guard at his position. He was special, but it's very hard to put in the top 5. I put Larry Bird on my bench. Absolutely would.
There's a lot of guys that I've forgotten about it. One of the other big men we didn't even mention that I think is right with Kareem right there is Olajuwon. So I would put
Olajuwon's another one. There's just so many.
No one
we have so
Chamberlain's
many.
Name.
Will Chamberlain.
Here's the problem with Will Chamberlain, and I'm going to say this again. First of all, Will Chamberlain couldn't beat Bill Russell. Okay, he had a problem beating Bill Russell, and that's the difference. And how many big men were in the NBA when Will Chamberlain played? There were not many.
Right, yeah.
There were not many.
That's why a lot of people don't think of him as the top 5. Maybe they might think of him as top 10.
So Will Chamberlain scored 50 and 50 or whatever the heck he did in the game.
Yeah, the 100-point game.
But the second big guy on the court was probably 6'6", 6'7".
Exactly.
So he towered over them. So that was the difference. But he had problems beating Bill Russell, the other big man. So honestly, I'm taking Bill Russell over Will Chamberlain. I'm taking Bill Russell over Shaquille, even though I think Shaquille was so dominant at the position here. And I would say Olajuwon. You look at Olajuwon. Also, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar could have been a 5 or a 4. You could put, and he's one of the greatest.
He's my third best player all time after Jordan and LeBron.
It's special.
I mean, that's a fair assessment. Again, there's just so many different guys. You can go with. It's just how good the league's been, and also, for so long.
And also the positions and the way they defend those positions, you have to look at that too. Michael Jordan was great at his position. I mean, LeBron can defend multiple positions. Tim Duncan can defend multiple positions. And that's why I picked Bill Russell, because he was the best. Some people say the greatest defensive player to ever play in the game. Okay, and you put an anchor like that on my all offensive team, I'm winning every single game because they're gonna guard the perimeter and they're gonna guard the boards and they're gonna rebound. So that's what you want. So it's crazy how the NBA has completely transitioned so many different ways, and that's what makes the NBA so special, and that's why I love it so much. A lot of people say, I was a hockey player and I followed hockey. Bo, I know you probably don't know much about me. I played at the top levels of hockey before I hurt my knee, and people would think that hockey was my favorite sport. Growing up, basketball was my love, and it was something that I fell in love with the Knicks when I was in 1988. I fell in love with it, and when Pat Riley took over as the head coach from the L.A. Lakers, the great L.A. Laker teams,
right?
I mean, with Kiki Vanderway, Xavier McDaniel, and people, Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley when he was traded from the Chicago Bulls, Patrick Ewing, John Starks, those teams. And I hated Charles Smith, by the way. Couldn't stand him. I don't even like mentioning his name because he couldn't hit a layup if his life depended on it. But when I watched the Knicks, it was just something special when you watch a whole team play. And I wish the NBA kind of transitioned into that. It's not like it used to be. And unfortunately, it's become, what do they call it, a trio game or
a shooters league?
Not even.
3-point league.
No,
yeah. Big three, yeah.
Superstars hated each other in the game. Okay, Isaiah Thomas would never play with Michael Jordan. You would never see that. Isaiah Thomas would never play with Patrick Ewing. Okay, he would never play with them. But now these days,
everyone's friends. Yeah,
everybody's friends. Yeah. They're lovers. They're the best man, or their son's best godfather. I mean, it's different. The game's different now, and I think it's hurt the game. I think it really has hurt the game. What are your thoughts to it?
I don't think it doesn't help, but in the sense of like rivalries and things like that, we don't have those anymore. Although it's going to be a lot of fun watching Trae Young go at Knicks fans,
of course,
for quite a while. Yes. Like that's going to be a lot of fun. It's fun to see the Knicks being good in the Garden and everything alive. I think we've kind of lost that a little bit, and I put a lot of that more on like just the time at AAU basketball,
right,
and everything that has gone to it and things like that. But I'm gonna push back a little bit on like these guys wouldn't necessarily team up. Now, MJ probably wouldn't team up with Isaiah Thomas because they absolutely hated each other, right? But like, say Scottie Pippen never became a Bull, right? Like at a certain point, there would have been that. It was also, again, a very different time in terms of the way free agency was done. You didn't have that much player movement. There wasn't that much changing from team to team in terms of free agency and constantly leaving, right? And your star player, Patrick Ewing, was a Knick forever. I mean, the last guys who really kind of have done it were Reggie Miller, Dirk Nowitzki, and Kobe Bryant, kind of staying with the one team their entire careers. Look, Charles Barkley played in the 80s, had that attitude. Mm-hmm. He get me out, went to Phoenix to go win a championship, went to Houston to chase a ring. Scottie Pippen, after his run with the Bulls, went to Portland to try to go win another ring. Went to Houston again to team up and try to do that. A little bit kind of revisionist history, but it's just that there wasn't so much player movement back then. Mm-hmm. Now there's just a ton more. And I don't know how often we're going to have a player that's going to be with this team his entire career. Right. I think those are going to be rarities. And I don't know how. I mean, Udonis Haslem will be the last guy because I don't think he's going to retire for 10 more years for the Heat. He's just going to be chilling on their bench, as grandpa. But like, I think that's, a rarity in what we're going to have. But I don't think we've lost too much in the game in terms of competitiveness because we've seen a lot of fun trash talk. Look at Joel Embiid trolling these dudes, and going at guys, and telling Andre Drummond, I own property in your head, and oddly enough, Andre Drummond's his teammate now. Very weird, and that's all odd. But like, there's a bunch of that stuff throughout the league and things like that. And, a lot of guys have all said, hey, I'm never going to go join a super team and then go join a super team. I just think that's sort of the product of the league we're in, but I don't think it's bad. Like, we have really great basketball right now. Like, the basketball itself to me is great. The product on the floor is awesome, especially this season. I think, we got tons of amazing young players across the board. I'm super excited to see these young guys like Trae Young, like Luka Doncic kind of continue on with everything. I mean, Giannis is like 25. He's still a baby, I think, we're going to have a long run with some very talented guys in the NBA. I kind of just look at talent-wise, we're in like the golden age right now of the NBA because it feels like every team has a guy that you look at going like, dude, that's a hell of a ball player. The team may suck, but that dude there is a hell of a ball player across the board. I think talent is so spread out around the league. That's not something we could say back in the day, right? Like, we had the same teams making the finals in the 80s, the Bulls nonstop run in the 90s and things like that. There was always kind of a same constant of these are the top teams. This time around, I feel like we have more talent spread around. I just think the gap in terms of like the worst players in the 80s and 90s couldn't play in this era now just because like the talent level has jumped up. They've all are just very good at playing basketball. And so I think, we're heading for some real fun times.
There was not a final in the 80s without the Celtics or Lakers.
I mean, that alone, right? And then it's like, so you kind of have that stuff. You had 6 years of the Bulls. The Knicks made it 1 year. Orlando made it another when Jordan retired. And it was the Olajuwon run those 2 years. But like, you just have – but there were just – few teams that were really good. I was a Laker fan during the 90s. We were bad after Magic retired. Mm-hmm. We weren't good till 96, and we weren't really a championship team till 99. So it's when Shaq came. I mean, Shaq came in 96. We weren't that good even. It took us until we got Phil Jackson and then really started to grow into becoming a championship team. But, there's a run of just like we went 10 years and we were terrible. The Celtics were terrible throughout all of that run, and for most of the 2000s.
The Knicks have been terrible for 25 years.
Yeah, I mean the Knicks are a whole other thing. I didn't want to throw some.
You can say it. I'm a Knicks fan. I mean, the Knicks have been terrible.
Or at least the Knicks know how to sell their playoff tickets, unlike the Nets.
Well, I mean, the best part about the Knicks now is y'all won one playoff game, and it's phenomenal. It's just pandemonium in the streets. I love it.
Well, the Knicks fan. One thing you can always expect: if the Knicks are winners, the fans go crazy. In any sport, the Knicks fans are just absolutely crazy. I could say that as a Knicks fan. My last question for you before we let you go: Obi Toppin, and I like what I see with the kid. You see his development. Last year, he barely played. He came in for like 8 minutes, but this year he's slowly but surely, they're starting to play him in the fourth quarter with Julius Randle on the court. What are your thoughts on Obi Toppin? Do you think that this kid could be a star in this league moving forward in the next couple of years?
I don't know if he could be a star, and I don't mean this to take a shot at him in any way, right? Because, give him a ton of credit. Like you said, barely played last season. Had some moments in that Atlanta series where I was like, okay, there's something coming along here. Worked his butt off all through the offseason and has earned Tibbs' respect and trust to be able to get out there and play him in the fourth quarter. And he's a great energizer guy, great energy, things like that. I just think being a star in this league is really difficult. I just don't know if he has that. I think RJ Barrett has a chance to be a star, but I don't know if Obi Toppin does, but it doesn't mean he doesn't have a chance to have a long career in the NBA and have a role as a guy that can help a team. It doesn't mean that's not what I'm saying. He can do that. It's just a star is a whole other star is a guy we're looking at going like, he might make some all-star teams.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. And Mo, you're awesome. And we went back and forth. I love it. I love it. I love arguing about when it comes to basketball in the future and the past and really where the NBA. And I can't wait until the next LeBron James comes into the league or Michael Jordan comes into the league.
He's here already.
Who?
Luka Doncic. Going to transcend the league.
Luka Doncic's been in the league for a couple of years. He's a great player. I don't know if he's going to transcend the league.
He'll be just fine. Wow.
He's a special player, but there's just I'm talking about a guy like when LeBron James came into the league. After watching him his first year, you knew he was going to be special. You just knew it. I don't think we've seen a guy that's really going to take the reins. Even when Kobe Bryant came into the league, I knew Kobe was going to be good, but I didn't know he was going to be great until his third or fourth year when he really just, the pandemonium and the craziness of the jams and what he did in Madison Square Garden. That's when the whole transition of Kobe Bryant's career completely changed. So I don't know if we've seen anybody like that, and I'm looking forward. Maybe it's LeBron James' son, Bronny. I don't know. Maybe he's the next.
Doubts, but
before I want to let you go. I want the fans to. I want you to tell the fans how they can find you on social media, and I'd love to get you back on the show. What makes you think that Bronny isn't going to be a good NBA player?
I don't think he just has it. He's here in the West Coast. I hear very little recruiting buzz along those lines and things like that. And listen, part of it is he's LeBron James's kid. The expectations are already unfair from day one, right? In that sense. Same way as Michael Jordan's kids didn't make it into the league. Jeffrey Jordan, I think, played at Illinois for a little bit, and that was it.
He just got arrested, by the way.
Yeah, a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
No, a couple weeks ago, he got arrested. And
I wouldn't have brought it up. I didn't know. Didn't need to make that worse. But I think when you just look at it, it's just he just doesn't have that total talent skill level to get there. Now he might get a couple opportunities because of his name and being the son of LeBron James and things like that. But I don't think we'll see him much in the NBA career level stuff. We got a ton of amazing young talent already. We've already touched on just some of the names, and I'm old, so I can't remember everybody, but we got a fun run in this league. So I'm not too worried about the talent.
Green from Houston looks like he's going to be a special player. I can tell you that right now. I really like what I see with him, and I saw him in the G League last year. He's special, and I think he's the best player in that draft.